This is day 6 of my coding journey. If you want to see Swift UI, check it out. It should be up by now. So today, a lot dealing with closures. That's the only thing I've learned so far. And this is just part 1. So what can I say about closures, right? They're just functions, but they're written differently. Because as we know, when it comes to functions, you have the keyword function, the name, the parentheses, followed by maybe a return, and then the curly brackets. But with this, you basically have the variable or constant, you give it the name, and then you do the curly brackets with the equal sign. So you're basically creating a function and storing it in a variable. That's what I got from it. Because you could also call the closure the same way you call any regular function. It's good for short and simple commands or tasks, I would say. Now, adding parameters is not the same as when you add parameters in regular functions, but it's essentially right after you do the curly braces, right? So you give it the name, any type, and you have to put in to let the platform know that this stuff is the body. But it has to differentiate what's the work that they got to do compared to what values are being put into it. Now, returning enclosures is different but the same when it comes to like regular functions. You just have to put it right next to where you're doing the parameters so that way it knows I'm returning something. Like, because just like how in functions we don't want them to just do an operation, we want to get that value back after they've done something, right? So we want them to return either an int, bool, string, double, whatever data type. Even you could probably return another function or a closure, but that's like more complicated stuff down the line based on what you're building, right? And now I did like a real world example where in certain scenarios, after you get your item, you might want to apply that discount, passing closures into function parameters. Now, just like how you saw in the beginning, I don't know if you've read at the top, but just like how you can pass closures into variables, you could also pass it into functions as well. So you just have to put in a key term, which is the parentheses slash void. And that basically means that in Swift, the closure isn't returning anything. It doesn't have any parameters inside of a closure. Because we realized up here, I created the parameter and I'm returning something. But for this, I'm not returning anything or have no parameters. And this basically allows me to create simple tasks outside of my function so that way my function isn't doing all of the heavy lifting. Like, it's good to delegate these type of things to other places rather than just the full function. But yeah, this just reiterates void means that your function accepts a closure that takes in no parameters and returning nothing, just like how I said. So trailing closures, I would say you don't have to create a variable for the closure. If you know your function doesn't have any parameters or isn't returning anything, then you can use that as a way to create said closure. So for example, here, I'm traveling somewhere and I want to perform some sort of action about where I'm going, what I'm doing each step of the way. So obviously we have here the syntax for creating a closure, and then I'm calling it here for the next step. But after I call it, I don't even have to have the parentheses. I could just literally just do how we do in regular closures and then do the operation. So this is basically creating the logic for it.